Good morning, YouTube. Steven here with Simple Tesla Life. It's been a little while since I posted, and I apologize. I was out of town. We went on a vacation for a little bit, took a cruise out of New Orleans. So we were gone for about a week, and anyway, so we got back, and I have been able to take a few trips, which I'll talk about here, and just my experience after now owning the car. You know, I've probably driven it maybe 7 days now, and just this past weekend we took a drive up into the mountains, and so I'll talk a little bit about that experience. I do have the directions on navigating to work because I was going to use the autopilot here as we get going. And I also you know, I was going to try and do a different angle of the video showing out the window so you don't have to look at me, but I've been having problems getting my my device to stick to the ceiling, to the roof. So anyway, so you're gonna have to just deal with looking at me today, and then I'll have to figure out maybe I need to get a different mechanism to hold it to the glass roof. But anyway, so just a quick update on a number of things. So like I said, this past weekend my wife and I, we took a trip up into the mountains. You know, we live outside of Denver, in the Castle Rock area. This trip we didn't quite have enough charge in the battery to take the trip the way we wanted to. So we went over to the supercharger. It was full. They're building out a number of superchargers here in the Denver area, but there's one at a mall that's just always, especially on weekends, it's just constantly full. So we had to wait probably, I don't know, 5 or maybe 10 minutes. We finally got a spot, and we got in and we charged for about maybe 10 or 15 to just kind of top off at the 80% mark. And then we were on our way, and the route that we took was we went up to Winter Park, and then we went from Winter Park, Colorado, which is, you know, a ski resort, up on over the mountains to Estes Park, and then from Estes we came back home. So all in all, I want to say it was like about a 240 mile trip in terms of mileage, but a ton of elevation gain, right? Because you're crossing over you know, huge mountain range, especially once, well, there's two real ranges and routes that you're climbing over. One is you're driving to Winter Park, there's a significant mountain range that you're having to climb over, and then the second one is after you leave Winter Park and you go past Lake Granby. You basically climb for many miles up to the mountaintops, and then the road literally follows the ridge line of several mountains until you then take the road back down into Estes Park. And so I, you know, plugged Winter Park in because if I just simply, I haven't figured out yet, but I don't think the navigation allows you to sort of customize routes, and you can't put in multiple waypoints yet, I don't believe. So again, if I'm wrong about any of that, you know, correct me in the comments, but from what I can tell, I can't you know, put in multiple waypoints. So I basically put in Winter Park. It took us to Winter Park, climbing up over that first range, and I don't remember what pass that is called, but when you go over it, it just feels so effortless driving the car over the mountains. You know, you can hear other cars, you know, their engines are revving higher as they're climbing these significant mountain ranges. This car just feels effortless, right? It's quiet. It just feels like if you need to punch it and still get a lot of torque to get some speed going up that mountain, it just seems like it's all there. So anyway, it was just completely uneventful. And then when we got to, we were climbing from at the point of you hit Lake Granby, and then it's just pretty much, it's just a straight climb. You're just constantly climbing for the next and I'm going to guess here, but it's probably the next, say, 30 miles, 25 or so miles, maybe around that. And it's you know, some parts are significant climbing, but it's just a steady climb. And so, you know, you're seeing the battery degradation, it's pretty high. And I probably left with around 200, I want want to say it's either had 250 or 270 miles of range. I've got the long range Model 3, so it's got a 310 capacity. And so, excuse me, so I believe I had around 250 to 270. And when we got to the point where we started climbing, it was probably 100, and we were down to like 100 and maybe 20. And then it just started to drop, fairly rapidly as we're going along. At one point, we needed to stop as we were climbing, and we weren't at the top yet of the mountains. And I turned off the car. We got out. We did some stretching, used the restrooms, and when I got back in to start it back up, it was like the navigation had lost track of where we were going, or I don't know if I canceled it, but anyway, it wasn't picking up on where we were going. So I went to put that back into the navigation that we were going to Estes Park, and the system, we were at that point, we were in the mountains, and the cellular coverage was gone, so the car didn't have any cellular coverage for the maps. And so I put it in, and the maps, they don't, when there's no cellular coverage, they don't give you the high detail, so the things are kind of blurry on the screen. But when I put in that we were going to Estes Park, it said you don't have enough battery to get there, and I was like, what? I was thinking to myself, I'm like at least 3/4 of the way up this mountain, and I still got at least a quarter to go, and this is saying I don't have enough range. And I think my car was showing like 80 miles of range or something at that point, right? So I mean, it's getting down. I know it's not that far. It's certainly not 80 miles to Estes Park from where I was at, but so anyway, so there was a moment there where I was thinking, whoa, this is not good, because you don't want to get stuck on climbing a mountain in a Tesla Model 3 and have to get towed out of there. I can only imagine what the bill would be. And Tesla's does not cover you running out of battery power unless the car fails, right? So if it's your stupidity or my stupidity, they wouldn't cover that. So anyway, so I thought to myself for a minute, I'm 3/4 of the way up this mountain. I've only got a quarter to go. There's no possible way I could lose, 70 whatever miles I had in a quarter of the climb. So I figured once I'm to the top, it's just downhill all the way. So I just thought to myself, there's no way this can be right, that it's saying I don't have enough battery to get to Estes Park. And then the option at that point was to turn around and head back, which, I mean, even though I'd be going downhill most of the way, I still would have had to have gone back to like Lake Granby to get a destination charger, because there certainly weren't any superchargers in that area. Although there are superchargers at Estes Park. So I just put it into self-driving, and we'll see how this goes. So anyway, we keep going. We do get to the top of the mountain ridge, and it did eat into the battery range a bit more. And I want to say by the time we got to the top, it was only down to like, I want to say around 60. And then we just started going downhill, right? It was just all downhill at that point, because it's quite a bit of downhill elevation loss as you're going from the top of the range up to over to Estes Park. So anyway, so we got to Estes Park. That all worked fine. It was just beautiful. The colors, the trees, the colors, it was just incredibly beautiful. And at that point we needed to find a charger. There was a supercharger there. It's interesting, the property of the supercharger is it's like on this hotel property that's gated. So you have to go through a security guard to get into where the supercharger's at. You just don't drive there and access it freely. But they were fine. They let us in. We went to charge, and we had about maybe a 30-minute charging session, because we were down into the 60s. And it charged us back up to near, I want to say 250, 260. And so that was all good. So I just had to take off full self-driving So there's a point in my drive, again, I wish I could show you that it's a 2-lane divided highway, and there's the right side of the road that I'm on turns into it's basically a passing lane for trucks and whatnot, and it turns into this passing lane, and as it approached it's like it didn't know which lane to take, and so it went to the left, which is the left lane, but it seemed like it started literally veering over into oncoming. It was like it was going to veer over into oncoming traffic. It didn't certainly put me into the yellow line, but it started to certainly hug very close to it, and it seemed like it was still going in that direction. So anyway, when that happens, what you do is you just basically pull the steering wheel the opposite direction. It knows once you're giving it enough force. It's kind of like when you're when you're in cruise control and you need to take it off cruise control, you hit the brake pedal. It's the same kind of concept. You just take that steering wheel and pull it the direction you want to go, and it just automatically knows that you're now in control, and it beeps at you and tells you that, and the car's no longer self-driving, you're driving it. And although I will say I've still got and I need to get my terminology down here, but I think it's basically I've got the enhanced cruise control, right? At least that's what I think of it as. They may call it in the Tesla world, it may be like autopilot, and then there's full self-driving, autopilot with full self-driving, or full navigation. I'm currently in enhanced autopilot. Enhanced autopilot is simply the car, you set the speed, it looks at how far the other car is in front of you, and it will basically keep the car going at that speed, but it's not going to keep me in any lanes. I'm still driving the vehicle, and it's just simply measuring my speed, and we'll do that in stop and go traffic, right? So as long as I stay in my lane, even if I switch lanes, I can switch lanes, and it will adjust to the speed of whatever lane I'm in, and whatever cars are in front of me. So that's nice. So anyway, so back to my story. So we topped off there. We got, some, we went and looked around, saw some of the elk there in Estes Park. And then we headed back. I should also add, on my drive up, I did use full self-driving, but, there's 2 ways to use it. You use full self-driving, and it asks you, in the settings, you can basically, you can set the settings so that hold on a second. So traffic is going to be coming to a stop here. In full self-driving, you can tell it to ask you to confirm lane changes. And what that is when you're going along on the interstate, and again, the car is driving, if it sees that there's a lane open, and that lane would potentially give you a better speed because you've got a slower car in front of you, it's going to naturally select to do a lane change. And when it does that, there's 2 ways to navigate that change. In the settings, there's a feature or an option that says confirm lane changes, and that basically means that when on the screen, it will show you the lane that it wants to move to in this kind of highlighted color, and you can see the lane you're currently in, and then you can see the lane that it wants to move to. And then in the settings, when you have it on confirm lane changes, basically you have to initiate the turn signal to get the car to move into that lane. The other way it does it is there's an automatic where it'll make the lane changes without you having to turn your blinker on. It basically just turns the blinker on, and then it says something on the screen, I believe, around confirming that. And I need to read a little bit more on this, but I was having problems where I would try to navigate the lane change, and I think what my mistake was I thought that it required me to nudge the steering wheel in the direction of the lane change, but I think what it's needing me to do is basically put my blinker in the direction of the lane change to confirm that that's it's okay for the car to make that change. Anyway, I kept having problems with that, I think because I was moving the steering wheel and it would take full self-driving off, and it was just kind of a pain. I kept doing it, and so I just basically put the enhanced cruise control on and just went most of my way that way. On the way back from Estes Park to my house, I set the feature to have it allow me to confirm lane changes in advance, basically. So it would, tell me where it wanted to make a lane change, and then I would initiate the turn signal, and then it would make the change. That to me went a lot more smoothly. Like I said, I probably need to play with that other option a little bit more. But anyway, on the drive back, it was a lot smoother. The full self-driving was great. I feel like that when it's in really, really, really busy traffic, meaning just cars just kind of going on around you, and people are over the speed limit, and they're just weaving in and out, the car is not quite as good yet with that. You have to be careful sometimes, because even right now, I'm in stop and go, a little bit of stop and go traffic right now. The car sometimes will speed up and slow down faster than I would if I were doing it with my foot on the pedal. And even brake wise, sometimes it'll slow down, not because I don't feel like because it has to, but because I think it's like it has to keep a certain distance from the car in front. And so if it feels like that distance is narrowing, even though there's still plenty of room to stop, it just applies a lot more pressure to the brake, and you get a much more sort of aggressive slowdown. So there's some things like that I think that they're still working on. They're still smoothing, what I would call that smoothing the car driving experience is they're still working on that. But aside from that, the vehicle driving itself, it does work very well, and you can definitely tell it's getting better. I've had it for a week. I can't give an experience of how it would have acted a month or 2 or 3 months ago, but in just a little bit that I've had it, and I did, when I first took delivery, I had the prior software version 9, and I have version 10 now. So I definitely have seen some of that smoothing happen just between those two versions, and in the short time I was able to drive it under full self-driving. So anyway, the trip was great. It was really comfortable. The car performed excellent over those mountain passes. That only one instance of not, the car telling me I didn't have enough range to get to Estes Park was a little bit of a concern, but naturally it didn't turn out to be a concern at all, because there was plenty of mileage given that I was getting to the top of a mountain range. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful. I've got, more content and things to come. I'll work on trying to get maybe a different angle so I can show my screen and what you're seeing out the front of the window versus just seeing me. And we'll keep doing these videos. I'm having a lot of fun with the car, and it's gonna get in to get some clear bra and some tint put on it tomorrow, and so I may not have it tomorrow, which is Wednesday and Thursday, but anyway, once I get it back, I'll put up some more content. Anyway, thanks everybody, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.